So I'm going to do my presentation of history and of animation, and I really want to start with this quote by Hayao Miyazaki. The creation of a single world comes from a huge number of fragments and chaos, because it pretty sums up what animation is. It's a lot of fragments put together to make a beautiful piece of work that tells a story and also captures imagination. So I'm going to go look through a brief history of animation, and then I'm going to, for my chosen people case studies, I chose Travis Knight from Leica Studios and Ralph Bashke for Rotoscope Cel Animation. So before I start, I looked at a bit of the illusion of movement. This is Max Wertheimer, a psychologist, who wrote a book in 1912 called The Illusion of Movement. And he, this is the five phenomenon, and it's an optical illusion. And what he did is he had two lamps, and he flicked them off on and off, one at a time, and it seemed like the light was moving. So it gave like the light appeared to be moving in the experiment. And then the beta movement is another experiment he found, is described when two or more images are combined by the brain without and there's not really evidence. When there's two or more images are combined by the brain and without any evidence of why we perceive motion, this is an illusion caused by distortion of sensory input, and scientists do not understand yet what causes the illusion, and they believe to be a physiological explanation to it, and now the evolution of animation. So first, I'm going to go to the Urian urn with the goat. It has a succession of images with the goat leaping. So when you turn it, it gives the sense of the goat leaping motion if you turn at a certain speed. And then there's cave paintings that were found in France, where they had like multiple layers, like they had like animation when you went by with a torch, and there was like a sense of motion from the pictures, and they were found by Marc Cassima in France. And then there were the Egyptian murals that also try to capture motion, but there were motion of like people wrestling. And then we had that should have been before, prehistoric thaumatrophs that were also found in France alongside the caves somewhere in the region, that were like carved on bone. And the thaumatroph is you spin it and then it gives you a sense of motion. But this is like very crude prehistoric stuff, but still pretty interesting. And then there's the Vitruvian Man. Skipped a couple of thousand years. That was drawn by Leonardo da Vinci, and it showed like proportions of the human body, but also had like multiple angles that implied movement of the body. And then the seventh magic lantern was invented, which is very important because it was the first projection device, and it allowed, by using light, it allowed to project images onto walls, or mainly was used in theater as a backdrop for actors. And then the 18th century, where it's like the seal, they had all these different progression of techniques, like the seal trough was like a hollow drum, and then it was spun around, and then you would get like a notion of movement. And then the flip book, we all know what that is, the drawings of pages, and then you flick them and gives movement. And then the movie Ola was like a better CO12, where like the image was on the outer circle and it was projected into the mirror, and and then when spun around, it was giving a sense of movement. And then the thaumatrope I explained before. And then the silent era came around, and there was a lot of development. Early animation was very crude, and there's The Good Dinosaur, I think it was, or something. It was called something like that, and then Phantasmagoria, I think. And then the first feature was made in Argentina, and I found it out, and it was by Quirino Cristiani, and Walt Disney asked the guy to come work for him, and he said he declined because that's the way we are. But I just thought it was interesting that this isn't he's never mentioned in the history of animation. So and then back to the north of the states, we had the development of Hollywood studios that were starting off, and we had Felix the Cat and Mickey Mouse by Walt Disney, and then I can't remember who did Felix the Cat. And and this is the golden age of animation, and Walt Disney was the early Cel Animation, one of the early Cel Animation developers. And here's some examples. Now we had the Fleischer Studios on the other side that had the Superman and Betty Boop and Popeye the Sailor Man, and then was also Warner Brothers that were in charge of Bugs Bunny and those. And then the first animation with sync audio was Snow White in 1937, which still a classic. And he used Cel Animation, and he won an Oscar for Best Animated Feature. And then the television came around, and that changed everything. Like it changed the whole animation purpose. Like they invented this thing called the Xerox process, where drawings were. I'll explain that later on. And then computer animation came along in the 1980s, and that's John Lasseter, one of the earliest computer animators. So I'm going to go to my case study now. And this is Travis Knight. He's the president and co-founder of Leica Studios. They work with Coraline and the Box Trolls, a lot of really cool stuff. And in stop motion animation, there's basics of animation when you're animating, when there's like 1 second of animation equals 24 frames per second. And there's like two different sort of like ones refer to the figure moving every frame, and like they try not to miss a frame, so the animation comes out smooth. And then more amateur animation is like the reason why it looks choppy and gives a strobe effect is because it's missing a lot of those in between frames, and that's why most times it seems choppy looking. So this all the films that Travis Knight worked on, Cuba and the Two Strings is the first directed feature he did, but he worked on all the previous movies as a lead animator, and began working with Henry Selick on The Nightmare Before Christmas before he founded Leica Studios. And in Leica Studios, what they do is the puppets are used by the animators and Travis Knight. They're made from silicon because it reflects light like real skin. It's the closest material. And there's like a tiny skeleton inside that helps the animator to get more precise movement. A little skeleton. Let's see here from Coraline, great movie. And the faces, and then they make faces, and they print them individually. Like they print like the top half and the bottom half, and then they can have a lot more different arrays of like expressions from characters, and mainly they print all the phonemes out, like so this helps like rather helps the animator when wording dialogue, and yeah, and then they have like little magnets that you can pop off and pop back on, and they have that's their library there. They have like thousands of different faces for every character that was made, and then in their last film, Kubo had like 30 puppets made, 30 different puppets made, and in the studio they make mostly everything by hand. Like that boat was using Kubo on the shoestrings, and every leaf was actually made and laser cut to be put on the boat set, and because they really do care about detail, and they made 2 of those boats as well. Because one had to be like taken apart and destroyed, sort of thing. And then because they always use like computer animation as well for CGI for like difficult effects. Like there's like some Kubo on the shoestrings and like this like birds made from paper are flying and they lift the kid up and stuff, but that was some CGI. The birds and they do have like rigs to hold the characters, and then they're deleted in post production, painted out, and also they also sometimes what they do is like in Cel Animation they could animate one character and then another character individually in different studios, different sets, and then put them together in post production. So it's a lot easier to do that way. And they can animators can focus on one individual character at a time rather than 3. And then here's just a little video of this box troll.
Keeping the streets clean.
Free from the world is just like...
Seems a bit tedious.
Like that, just there, me blinking. That would have taken them a day.
Me moving my arm. 500 men.
I mean, none of them are going home. They're having to do this.
You get the idea. That's Travis Knight himself there, animating. Oops.
Now,
And then now I'm going to talk about Ralph Bakshi and Cel Animation and rotoscope that he used. A lot of so he worked on these are 3 of his films, which Fire and Ice used a lot of rotoscoping. Most of it's rotoscope, and then Wizards was Cel Animation, and which also used rotoscope for like big armies and stuff, which I found really interesting. And the Lord of the Rings was a lot of it was rotoscoped as well. So in Cel Animation, the way Ralph Bakshi did it is the actors would be filmed and the frames would be printed. They didn't have the and then the animators to make Fire and Ice, where they would like just get paper and draw and put the photograph under the paper and then draw over it, on the paper, but over the photo. And a lead animator, there was like different stages to the animation. Like there was the lead animator that would make the keyframes of the motion in a scene, and then he would pass it on to his assistant animator that would clean up the lines of the work that they did. And then then there was the in-between frames animator that fills the rest of the motion by drawing the missing action. And a pencil test is done just to check the continuity and movement. And then the drawings are duplicated using a printer called, and the process known as Xerox process. And the drawing was replicated on a clear cell, like a plastic sheet. And then it would be inked and colored. And then the backgrounds would be worked on separately. And then using a rostrum camera, the drawings will be put together to create the final scene. And it's just the camera they would use, so, the technique that they had the background, and then they had individual two characters in different slides. And then they would change the mouths and stuff around. So it really helped with the the scale of time the animation had to be produced, because it was a time saver. And these are some of his films, like American Pop was mostly like Rotoscope and Cool World, Heavy Traffic, and Coonskin has some effect, like live action performances as well. And that's it.